So let's return to our case study. So, what the authors have shared is this. Based on the above review of effective gatekeeping and common issues faced and demonstrated by supervisees, as well as issues commonly faced and demonstrated by substance abuse counselors, we rewrote our case study to demonstrate how Mary can provide effective supervision that allows for fair and ethical gatekeeping, highlighting the importance of due process. In case study part 1, Mary demonstrated many aspects of effective supervision, including clearly stating expectations of the internship and the counselor role. She shared information regarding professional ethics and met regularly with Jack to monitor his progress, develop his skills, and address any reported challenges. She also attended to building a strong professional supervision relationship with Jack. She directly addressed Jack's reported challenges with self-disclosure and suspected risk of unethical behavior and offered remediation via role plays. Despite implementing these strategies, there are a number of important elements that Mary failed to include, including utilizing signed documentation, for example, a supervision contract, direct observation, and a formal remediation plan signed by the supervisee. Failing to include these practices in her supervision negated the due process that Jack is obligated to receive. Below is the same case rewritten to demonstrate fair, ethical, and effective supervision with substance abuse counselors. Case example revisited. During the initial phase of supervision, Mary discusses Jack's goals, background, strengths, and limitations as he sees them. She provides and discusses with Jack the supervision contract, which outlines her role, expectations of supervision, as well as her availability and supervision model. Mary also follows best practices by having Jack sign the contract, affirm that he has read it, and understands the expectations and requirements of supervision. Mary also provides Jack with a copy of the Supervisor Evaluation of the Professional and Ethical Competence of Substance Abuse Counselors, or SPEC-SAC, from Schmidt et al. 2013. Discusses the beginning knowledge, skills, and attitudes reflected on the SPEC-SAC that are expected of a substance abuse counselor and signs it along with Jack. She also provides Jack with the NADAC and ACA codes of ethics, as well as an agency policy and procedure manual. She also has Jack sign a form stating that he has received a copy of these forms and documents. She places all signed forms in a permanent file to which she will add her weekly supervision progress notes. During the first several months of supervision, Mary personally observes Jack in the role of counselor on many occasions, including co-leading a group and providing individual counseling. She must attend sessions in person as there is no recording capability at the agency. She notices during her observations that Jack discloses inappropriately at times, making himself the focus of the session and not using self-disclosure based on the client's needs. Mary uses supervision time to discuss appropriate self-disclosure, role plays appropriate self-disclosure, and uses the SPEC-SAC or SPEC-SAC to justify its importance. At a later session in which she observes Jack, Mary hears his female client reference a supportive encounter she had with Jack outside of the agency on 2 occasions. Upon hearing this, Mary confronts Jack in the next supervision session. Jack verifies, stating, "She was needing more support, and I know her from my 12-step group. We only met a couple of times, and nothing inappropriate happened." Mary describes the situation as a potential ethical violation, using codes of ethics and the SPEC-SAC to guide and support her, while also providing this information to Jack in written form. She also references the agency policy forbidding employees to develop personal relationships with clients outside of work. Based on these documents and relying heavily on the SPEC-SAC, Mary creates a remediation plan including additional education on ethics, professional literature on appropriate self-disclosure, and the risk of dual relationships. She also moves the female client from Jack's caseload to that of another counselor in the agency. She documents these actions and discussions, including a time frame and stipulation should Jack fail to comply. She uses the SPEC-SAC as her documentation, has Jack sign it, and places it in his file. Once the deadline arrives, she learns that Jack failed to 1. Attend any additional training, education on ethics, 2, read any literature on professional self-disclosure. And 3, continue to meet with his former female client who is still a client of the agency. Furthermore, after several observations of Jack in the counselor role, Mary determines that he continues to self-disclose inappropriately, making himself and his recovery the main focus of the sessions. Soon after, Mary holds a meeting with Jack and his university supervisor where she discusses strengths and areas of growth that Jack has demonstrated, the use of formal documentation, and the ethical issues Mary continues to see based on her direct observation and assessment of Jack's work. Consequently, Mary informs Jack that she cannot sign any document stating that Jack is fulfilling his hours requirements toward licensure. Jack becomes angry and files a complaint with Mary's supervisor and the state licensing body. Mary responds to the state licensing body's request for supervision documentation, providing them with the signed documentation in her file, justifying her professional decision to dismiss Jack.